we have to keep hammering home the real sense of crisis that's been talked about, in the sense of urgency. And I think as a country, what we're lacking, what I'd ask this group to really think about, is a sense of moral outrage. There's a real complacency that things are okay, and if you survey parents, most parents say their schools are okay, and in many situations that's true. But in many situations, our schools are perpetuating poverty and perpetuating social failure. And we have to be willing to deal with that openly and honestly. And whether it's McKinsey work today, whether it's the report on dropouts that came out from America's Promise yesterday, the work of the private sector stepping up and really being a voice of moral urgency and a real sense that things have to get dramatically better is critically, critically important. I thank you so much for this hard work. So where do we go? Where do we go? We know the facts, we know the challenges, we know how far we have to go, but I, like Byron, I have this huge sense of optimism about what we can accomplish. And I want to sort of walk through taking these facts, taking this devastating reality today, where do we have to go to dramatically change the outcomes for children, and if we do that, change the economic future of our country. A couple thoughts, and this is where this report is so helpful. To me, data matters tremendously, and we have to have a new era of transparency. The challenges that Byron talked about of looking across different states and not being able to compare things doesn't make any sense. And part of what we're doing, yes, we're investing $100 billion in education, unprecedented amount of resources going out, but we're asking with that money, it's not a free lunch, we're asking for unparalleled reforms, unprecedented reforms, an unparalleled level of transparency. And we have to continue to tell the facts and to point out the strengths, the weaknesses, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we're going to push very, very hard around the country that we start to have comprehensive data systems that track children over time so they don't get lost, that track children to teachers so we understand which teachers are making the biggest difference in our students' lives, and that significantly track teachers back to their schools of education and whatever other routes, alternative certification routes that they come into teaching, so we know over time who's making the biggest difference. And so we have to work very, very hard on transparency, and these kinds of reports shed a huge amount of light, and for that I'm very, very grateful. Secondly, it's fascinating to me that the biggest gap there is obviously it's an international gap. And we have to think about common, college-ready, career-ready, internationally benchmarked standards. Not national standards, not local standards, and definitely not federal standards, don't mistake me here. Internationally benchmarked, college-ready, career-ready standards. Everyone here knows our children are competing not down the block or in the district, in the state. Our children are competing with children in India and China for jobs. And we have to dramatically raise the bar. I've been arguing that in far too many states, including the state I'm from, Illinois, in many places we are lying to children. When we tell them they are, quote unquote, meeting their state standard, the logical conclusion for a parent or a child is that they're doing okay. They're on track to being successful. The fact of the matter is in too many places where you are meeting, quote unquote, meeting standards, you are barely prepared to graduate from high school and absolutely inadequately prepared to go to a competitive university, let alone graduate. And the only way we reverse that is to stop dumbing down 50 state standards, 50 states doing their own thing. We have to have common, college-ready, career-ready, internationally benchmarked standards. And I think we need to give much more flexibility and let folks innovate and find creative ways to hit that bar, but we have to have a common bar, and it's got to look at what other countries are doing. That's the goal, that's the world we're in today, and we have to face that reality. Third, and again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but the data just shows us, and every report I see says the same thing, and just know it from walking in hundreds and hundreds of schools over the past few years. Great teachers, great principals make a huge, huge difference in our students' lives. Dramatically bigger difference than race or socioeconomic status or income or neighborhood or background or any of those other factors. Yes, those are factors, but in the toughest of communities, inner city, urban, rural, wherever it might be, great teachers, great principals are making a huge difference in the lives of our students. And we have to think very, very differently about talent. I would argue you can have the most up-to-date facilities, great new buildings, you can have great technology, you can have all the new textbooks. If you don't have great teachers and great principals, those things are going to have marginal impact. So how do we fundamentally change how we think about talent?